I spent $300 on books like this for CSGO to tell you what they say. Like this boost doesn't work, and this angle doesn't even exist. Oh, it's already here. Somehow this book was $80, which is why we needed our sponsor. You can never do too much manscaping, and that's why I've got this box of goodies here. Manscaped offers the best tools and liquid formulations for the 3 big odor zones: body, your butt, and your balls. And you need that if you ever go to LAN. Trust me. So what have I got here? I've got the Lawnmower 4.0, and if you don't understand how this works, we're gonna bring out the whiteboard here. You see, we've got a brilliant lawn here with a tree in the middle. That tree looks oddly small because there are very long weeds right around the tree. You're just gonna turn on the lawnmower and just clean those up. No big deal, just clean those up and then you're good to go. It's gonna look way better. They also sent me a nose hair trimmer, which I think might be a shot, but I can use it anyways. Regardless, if you plan on meeting someone or just going to LAN in the future, you can go to manscaped.com and get 20% off, free international shipping, and 2 free gifts using promo code VOO20 at checkout. Click the link in the description and head there now. A few years ago, me and my brother wanted to write a free book for CSGO, and we never got far, but it turns out a lot of other people finished theirs, and you can find them on Amazon. So I bought all of them, and here they are. Starting with Esports for Dummies that tells us nothing says esports like a large TV. Yes, it actually says that. And yes, all of my opponents were huge, but I had to be about 10 feet back from the screen, so it kind of defeated the purpose, and it's only 60 Hz. Don't do this. Now, all the other books recommend a monitor, so switch back to that so that we can win the DM, but before we can play matchmaking, all of the books recommend a ridiculous amount of practice. So we need aimbots, then a 128-tick DM, then a pistol DM, then a casual server, then a zombie server. Wait, seriously?
No.
And then we finally made it into matchmaking, which is totally broken, but it's time to learn how to play CSGO from CSGO Books. And how to become professional CSGO player tells us to put our crosshair on your teammate's head and leave it there when the next round starts. Okay, maybe just around that level. It's hard to mess up crosshair placement tips. Keep it a head level. Don't play like this even if it looks cool, and the big CSGO guide tells us if you have any problems, watch this Adren video. Wait. This VOO CSGO video. The only downside to good crosshair placement is how bad you're gonna look if you whiff anyways, like this. Flicks are just a lot more forgiving in that way. But really what was surprising is that none of these books mention YPrac maps, which every video on the topic ever absolutely will. Here are 3 images CSGO Guide to Global gives you to help you understand positioning, and they're actually really useful. Here's how they would look in-game, and here's how they would look if they were used in-game. And here's what it looked like when I tried to use it in-game. Okay, next book. In the following GIF, you can see Peeker's advantage explained. I paid $80 for this. At this point, I considered quitting the video and saving myself the embarrassment, but I found a new book, Your Guide to Winning in Dust 2 Every Time You Play. So let's cram the rest of the tips and get global playing Dust 2 only. Big CSGO Guide tells us if there's an opera on A, we should always go B. Winning at Esports tells us to wear face cream because it has a lot of mineral. Just ask your woman for one, they know all about it. I promise you it actually says this. Counter-Strike Global Offensive Guide, walkthrough, tips, cheats, and more doesn't really say anything. And for this one, I had to consult a pro player, so I called up Swisher. Do you think this book sufficiently delivers on the title, How to Become Professional CSGO Player?
It nailed every spot. Every spot nailed.
So it's just 1 page? This is the worst book I've ever read.
Which brings us to Your Guide to Winning in Dust 2 Every Time You Play, and it has 1 CT setup that's a bit hard to understand. It's a fairly normal setup, 2 long, 1 cat, 1 B, but the key is the mid player. So here's a direct quote. The 4th player will hold mid. Their job is to give the A players information about anything happening at catwalk, as well as delay the infamous B split through mid and tunnels. It's good so far. If the Ts have an op, this can be a bit tricky as you can't peek catwalk without putting your life and the round at risk, but walking faster is the only solution. Switch to a knife.
You want me to switch to a knife if the guy's opping?
This is gonna be hard to follow.
No, read it again.
What is so hard to understand here, Austin? If they have an op, just run faster. Okay, but when T's don't have an op, it's pretty standard. Player 1 goes towards pit, player 2 struggles to remember how to flash for that player to get into pit, and then rotates mid, player 3 on cat, and player 4 kills everyone in mid.
Guy, oh, 2 mid guys dead. I dropped the bomb.
Nice.
One's up cat. Guys, one's up cat! One's up cat!
I got him.
That's my job to tell you.
Scare me like that,
Guys,
Austin.
A players, there's nobody threatening you guys. I have middle
Give me a heart
control.
attack.
Now let me introduce Glizzy Enthusiast. He's best known as their opper, but little known fact, he's been training for this moment his entire life. The problem is we still don't know what the solution is to run faster, use your knife really means, but we do have 3 theories. The leading theory is you sit on the corner here jiggling, and if an opper does show up, you either fall back, or if possible, you run at him with your knife out and you kill him. The second theory comes straight from an ESEA advanced player. Austin, why don't you explain what you're doing here?
So obviously, you know, when you have your knife out, you're going to be running across mid doors faster. And when you jump, you probably won't die because you're just going to get leg shot. You know, we don't have a B player. It's actually fine because I'm actually not even exposed to B. And if they go B, then I'm you know, just going to be there to retake or maybe even save at that point.
But what if they peek out on you from lower?
Oh, well, in that case, then we just lose.
The third theory is the one we decided was actually the best, and you're allowed to peek mid with the op, but you're also allowed to peek cat because this book is terrible, and this is a standard way to play, although it turns out might be a little risky. Not to give up on Dust 2 tips entirely, there is another book with a section for Dust 2, and it gives us a strat on T side that's basically a long rush with 2 players so that you can get one of them into pit, and then you go back around so that you can go for a mid-B split. And it did actually somehow manage to work for us this round, and I know what you're thinking, that's a really unique strat, I've never seen that before. Well, it is exactly what the last book said. Word for word. In fact, it's literally just copy-pasted. 3 Musketeers have control over mid is a ridiculously specific line to be in 2 books at the same time. And after reading that and then confirming the Dust 2 book came out 2 years earlier, the first thing I did was cry. $80. $80. But after that, I started tracking down every other tip in the book that seemed weird. There's a chapter on DE Austria, which is a map that was removed from the pool 6 months before the book came out. This line shouts out dignitas.gg, a website that writes guides. And this chapter is literally a Reddit post from 2016. And a comment from the same thread right down to the typo. Maybe I should just leave some feedback on their Facebook page. Just kidding, it doesn't exist. Obviously, most of these are directed straight at beginners, but most of them could barely even qualify as a book. Really, I would rate all of these books? Not worth buying. But Vu, what would a good book look like? Good question. Austin?
I'd probably just tell him to watch YouTube.
That's right, just link to YouTube. And then, hey, why not just ask some YouTubers right now? The consensus among all the YouTubers I messaged was, get away from me weirdo, I would never write a book. And fair enough, it's definitely a waste of time, but I will admit this book was actually pretty solid. The definitive guide on the weapon finish can be found online for free, but it's so high quality that I don't regret buying it just to support the creators. But otherwise, for tips, there are tons of YouTubers you can go to find great advice on Counter-Strike, or this video here.